What if everything you thought you knew, every memory you hold dear, isn't quite as solid as you believe?
Hmm.
What if the very fabric of our reality is being, like, tugged at, stretched, or even altered
Altered.
by experiments happening right now, deep underground? What if some of the most bizarre coincidences, those collective misremembering that we experience,
Yeah.
aren't just quirks of the human mind, but maybe whispers from a world just out of reach?
Wow. Okay. That's quite a hook.
Welcome to the cool, weird, and possible.
So, today we are taking a deep dive into something truly fascinating and, yeah, for some, deeply unsettling CERN.
The European Organization for Nuclear Research.
Yes.
Big name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For decades, CERN has been right at the absolute forefront of fundamental physics, smashing tiny particles together, trying to unlock the universe's most profound secrets. But out there, beyond the rigorous scientific papers,
Right.
a very different narrative has taken hold, fueled by sci-fi, dark humor, and let's be honest, a pretty healthy dose of conspiracy.
Definitely seeing that online.
Yeah. So the central question we'll be exploring is, are they actually opening dimensional portals?
The big one.
Yeah, and you've shared some incredible sources with us, ranging from dense scientific articles to some really lively, sometimes wild online discussions.
It's a real mix.
So our mission here is to unpack the knowledge and insights within those sources, help you separate the truly weird from the genuinely possible.
Okay, let's do it. Because when you go online and start looking into CERN, it really is a wild ride.
It is.
Our sources show this incredible mix, like you said, educational content right alongside some truly sensationalist claims.
Yeah, whiplash sometimes.
It makes you wonder, why CERN? Why this particle physics place, unlike, say, Fermilab in the US or DAI in Germany?
Good point.
Why is it the absolute epicenter of so many unusual theories? Is it just because it's the biggest, the most powerful machine?
That's a great question. And, our sources really highlight what amounts to a massive public perception crisis for science. I think so. On platforms like YouTube, Reddit, various forums, people are encountering ideas that range from CERN blowing up the world
Wow.
to even high-profile figures like Elon Musk, apparently suggesting the Large Hadron Collider, the LHC, uses demonic technology.
Seriously.
Palpable fear of potential disastrous effects coming from the research.
You can feel it.
It's the scale, yes, but also maybe the mystery, the unknown deep underground thing that seems to fuel these narratives.
And it goes further than just like abstract fears of cosmic disaster. I mean, we've seen claims of actual human sacrifice rituals supposedly happening right there.
The Shiva statue incident, yeah.
Exactly. In front of the Shiva statue at CERN.
Yeah.
The reports, well, at least in the sources we looked at, suggest there was footage. And an investigation was supposedly launched, but then silence. No real public answers were given. Even if it was eventually described as just a prank, that lack of transparency, or at least public clarification, it certainly leaves room for skepticism, doesn't it? It fuels the claims.
It absolutely does. And the sources also mention these strange coincidences like CERN reopening the LHC on the exact day of a major solar eclipse.
Oh yeah, I saw that one. People were freaking out.
Definitely. Some observers saw it as bad PR, maybe even an ominous sign.
You can see why they would.
Indeed. But it's important to connect these claims to the responses from CERN itself, as reported in our sources.
Okay, what do they say?
The Reddit discussions, for example, they do reference an HR report. Apparently, it detailed reprimands for breach of conduct and for breach of the obligation to exercise reserve and tact, causing prejudice to the reputation of the organization.
So they did act on the prank thing.
It seems so. While the specifics of that alleged prank aren't fully detailed in the public report, it clearly indicates internal action was taken. It wasn't just ignored. And as for the eclipse, well, the claim itself is countered by CERN. They point out that nothing significant actually happened on their continent during that specific eclipse anyway.
So maybe just a coincidence blown out of proportion?
It's a good example of how easily misinformation or even simple timing can be spun into something far more sinister, especially when public trust is already kind of strained.
But then you hear other things, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea that CERN is secretly trying to create a time machine, or even that they're purposefully creating tiny black holes.
Yeah, those pop up a lot.
And some people have even claimed that CERN is trying to contact parallel dimensions, sometimes saying CERN scientists admitted this in their own words. How do we sift through those?
Well, The microscopic black hole claim.
Yeah.
There's a tiny kernel of truth there, but it gets heavily sensationalized.
Okay.
CERN has admitted to attempting to create microscopic black holes. It's part of their studies into antimatter and the fundamental forces.
Right.
However, they consistently and firmly insist their research is perfectly safe. Because these theoretical microscopic black holes, if they're formed at all,
Big if,
they would decay and vanish in a fraction of a trillionth of a second. Just gone. Far too quick and too small to cause any global catastrophe.
Okay, that's reassuring. Sort of.
And the idea of a time machine or contacting parallel dimensions, that often stems from theoretical physics concepts like wormholes.
Ah, okay, we'll get to those.
Oh yeah, we absolutely need to dive into wormholes later. But it's true, the fear of these experiments causing a universe-wide collapse or opening unforeseen doorways. It's a deeply recurring theme for people worried about CERN.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting for a lot of people, I think, because it hits close to home. One of the most pervasive theories linking directly to CERN, and something many of us feel like we've personally experienced, is the Mandela Effect.
Ah, yes. Collective false memories.
Exactly. Those moments, we're talking about things like remembering Nelson Mandela passing away while still imprisoned back in the 80s.
Right, when he actually died much later, 2013.
Yeah. Or the Monopoly Man having a monocle.
Or she never did.
Nope. Or even the Berenstain Bears spelled with an E instead of an A. Berenstain.
That one gets everybody.
It does. And our sources really dig deep into this. Some people even recall a black tip on Pikachu's tail.
Which isn't there now.
Or a cornucopia, like a horn of plenty, on the Fruit of the Loom logo that simply isn't there in our current reality.
Right. It's fascinating because it's not just one or two people.
Millions share these distinct, vivid, false memories. It feels real to them.
So what does this all mean for those who connect it to CERN? What's the link?
Well,
the core theory, as we found in our sources, is that CERN's Large Hadron Collider, the LHC, which started up in September 2008, is the direct cause. They point out that the Mandela Effect phenomenon was first really coined in 2009, right after the LHC came online.
Okay, the timing is suggestive, I guess.
Proponents suggest the LHC's high-energy particle collisions are somehow causing quantum fields to shift, like nudging us into the closest parallel universe timeline.
Whoa.
The claim is our consciousness isn't affected, so we keep the memories of the old timeline, even though reality around us has subtly changed.
So we remember the Berenstain Bears, but now live in the Berenstain reality.
That's the idea. They suggest events like a particle breaking into quarks or, finding the Higgs boson could trigger these tiny but significant reality shifts.
Wow. That's quite a leap, isn't it? From colliding particles to altering reality for everyone.
It's a huge leap.
But to even begin to unpack that, we probably need to touch on some basic quantum mechanics, right?
Definitely.
What are we actually talking about with quantum entanglement? Our sources explain it as like particles linking together so intimately that no matter how far apart they are, their states stay connected.
What?
Einstein's spooky action at a distance.
Right. The classic description.
And it's not just theoretical for two particles anymore. Physicists have apparently entangled 15 trillion atoms.
That number's staggering, yeah.
Then there are concepts like space-time symmetries, which are like the basic rules. Restrictions on how things behave in the quantum field.
Sort of like the universe's underlying grammar, yeah. Unchanging laws.
And the law of conservation of energy. Energy can't be created or destroyed, just converted.
Absolutely fundamental.
So how do these really complex ideas get pulled into the Mandela Effect theory involving CERN?
Well, that's a really crucial distinction to make, and where the theory often gets shaky, according to scientists.
Okay.
The LHC, for instance, collides bunches of around 100 billion protons. It's an astonishing rate, 40 million collisions every second.
Wow.
And this causes them to break into their fundamental bits, quarks and gluons.
Right.
The Mandela Effect theory posits that the information lost or maybe dispersed in these super high-energy processes could cause the quantum field to shift to a nearest reality.
Creating the memory glitches.
That's the claim. However, skeptics and mainstream scientists, as our sources highlight, quickly point out a critical flaw.
Which is?
High-speed, high-energy particle collisions like this. They happen naturally in our atmosphere all the time, every millisecond, thanks to cosmic rays hitting air molecules.
Oh. So it's not unique to CERN.
Not at all. What CERN does is essentially a drop in an ocean compared to what nature does constantly.
Okay.
The difference is CERN has these giant, super sensitive detectors that let us measure and study these pretty normal common events with incredible precision.
Right.
So the idea that CERN's controlled, localized experiments could somehow have this universal, reality-altering effect that natural cosmic events don't.
It just doesn't really align with the physics we understand.
But okay, what about the feeling, the intensely vivid nature of some of these examples? People swear the Bible has changed verses.
Yeah.
Or that our solar system's location in the Milky Way isn't where they remember learning it was. They insist their memories are too vivid, too precise to just be misremembering.
The conviction is powerful. And then you have these moments where it almost feels like CERN itself is like winking at the theorists. Videos surfacing of staff seemingly making light of it, like that sign reading, "Bury Nelson Mandela."
Right, which obviously plays right into it.
For believers, these feel like blatant hints, not just random jokes or coincidences.
And this really raises a very important question about, well, human cognition and the power of belief.
How our minds work.
Exactly. While the Mandela Effect itself is a recognized phenomenon, scientists largely attribute it to well-documented cognitive processes, false memories, confabulation.
Fabulation.
Yeah, like your brain filling in gaps in memory, creating a narrative that feels true but isn't based on actual experience. False memories are fascinating, actually, and often unsettling. They're well documented, influenced by schemas, our mental frameworks, suggestion, misinformation. We're all susceptible to remembering things inaccurately, even if we're highly intelligent or really confident in our memory.
So it's not about being dumb, it's just how brains glitch sometimes.
Oh, pretty much. Yet, despite that scientific consensus, the belief that CERN is somehow manipulating reality persists for many. It's a strong narrative.
And some even see the false memory explanation as like a cover-up, a red herring.
Exactly. A deliberate distraction by those who believe the Mandela Effect has other, deeper, maybe even more profound causes than just a cognitive glitch.
It really highlights that human need to find a tangible explanation for something that feels so deeply strange and unsettling.
Absolutely. We want answers, especially for weird stuff.
Okay, so moving from these perceived reality shifts.
Yeah.
Let's talk about actual literal dimensional portals.
The sci-fi dream.
Right. This idea isn't just confined to online theories. It's huge in science fiction. Interstellar's cosmic shortcuts, Marvel movies with gateways between realms.
Everywhere.
But is this concept truly grounded in real science at all? Are dimensional portals just crazy fantasies? Or could they, maybe, possibly be real?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the concept of a dimensional portal, or at least something like it, actually became theoretically conceivable way back in 1916.
Really? Yeah.
That's when the physicist Ludwig Flamm first explored the idea of a wormhole.
Ah, wormholes. Heard of those.
Essentially, a theoretical tunnel linking two separate points in space-time. A shortcut.
Okay.
In theory, if they existed and were stable, these could offer shortcuts for space travel, like traversing vast cosmic distances almost instantly.
Imagine finding new planets, maybe meeting aliens.
The implications would be, well, monumentally impactful for humanity. Game-changing doesn't even cover it.
So if they're theoretically possible, why aren't we zipping around the galaxy? Are they just super hard to find? Or is there a catch?
There's a big catch. Several, actually. First, as our sources indicate, wormholes remain purely theoretical constructions. We have never, ever spotted anything like one out there.
So just math for now.
Just math.
Yeah.
But even if we found one, or figured out how to make one theoretically, the biggest hurdle is they don't stay open naturally.
They collapse.
Exactly. The intense gravity involved would cause them to slam shut almost instantly, keeping one stable, open, and actually traversable.
Would require something truly extraordinary. Negative mass or exotic matter.
Negative mass, like stuff that weighs less than nothing.
Sort of, yeah. It's matter with properties unlike anything we've ever observed. It's even more theoretical and hypothetical than wormholes themselves.
So really, really theoretical.
Extremely. It's certainly not something CERN, with its current tech and understanding, can just whip up or control.
Right.
And think about it. A human-sized doorway to somewhere else. That would represent an unimaginable risk to the whole planet.
True. You wouldn't want that in your backyard.
Definitely not. If such a thing were ever conceivable, you'd want it stored far, far away in distant space, not deep underground in Geneva. That's just not what CERN deals with.
Okay, so if we talk about quantum entanglement again, that spooky action at a distance, it's not really a portal in the wormhole sense then, even if information seems linked instantly.
That's a critical distinction, yeah, and it often gets muddled. While entanglement is often described that way because particles stay linked instantly regardless of distance.
Physicist Matt Strassler, in one of our sources, argues quite clearly that calling entanglement a doorway or tunnel fundamentally misapplies the word portal.
How so?
He basically says, if entanglement is a portal, then portals are absolutely everywhere in nature, throughout our bodies, our surroundings, and there's nothing exciting about humans making one.
Okay. It demystifies it a bit.
It's about correlated properties, shared information, yes, but there's no physical passage. No hole is being opened. You can't send a message, let alone a person, through an entangled connection.
So it's a connection of information, not a shortcut through space.
Exactly. A profound connection, but not a transport system.
That makes perfect sense. So, okay, if CERN isn't making literal sci-fi portals, what about those deeper quantum concepts? Like the idea that consciousness itself might rely on quantum entanglement. Our sources bring up some really mind-bending research.
The Trinity College study.
Yeah, using an MRI to possibly witness entanglement in proton spins right there in the human brain.
It's fascinating stuff.
What does that even hint at? Could our brain activity, maybe consciousness itself, operate on a quantum level? Could that explain why our brains are so powerful, almost inexplicably complex?
This truly raises a huge question, doesn't it? It pushes the boundaries of physics and philosophy.
Totally.
Quantum mechanics fundamentally challenges our classical, everyday understanding of reality. It just doesn't work the way we expect.
Like how?
Well, take experiments like the delayed choice erasure. They're not just complex, they seem to show something utterly bizarre.
Okay.
Like our measurement choices, or even a choice made after a quantum event seems to have happened, can somehow influence its past behavior.
Wait, influence the past? How?
It's mind-bending, like deciding what happened yesterday, today, and then there's John Bell's theorem.
Bell's theorem.
Without getting super technical, it essentially proved that local realism, our intuitive idea that things have definite properties before we look, and that info can't travel faster than light, is probably false at the quantum level.
So reality isn't as solid as it seems.
It suggests a deeply interconnected universe. Maybe properties only become real when observed, or maybe influences between entangled particles are instantaneous, defying our normal intuition about cause and effect.
Wow. It really makes you wonder about the objectivity of reality and, like, the observer's role in it all.
Doesn't it just?
Absolutely. And this just ties into even larger philosophical ideas we saw in the sources. Some suggest that as science progresses, the complexity and maybe elegance of nature seems to increase, pointing to an intrinsic correlation between the principles of physics and metaphysics, like they're linked somehow.
Physics and metaphysics?
Yeah, they even propose the presence of metaphysics in physics to explain the incredibly improbable existence of our universe.
What do they mean by that, exactly?
Well, they seem to be suggesting some kind of enigmatic entity or maybe just an unknown profound cause for things like particle asymmetry.
The matter-antimatter imbalance.
Right, that tiny imbalance that let matter win out, allowing our universe to form instead of just, poof, annihilating itself right at the start.
Which is incredibly lucky, statistically speaking.
Exactly. It's like the universe is finely tuned for life to exist in a way that seems almost too perfect to be just random chance. It raises questions beyond just what we measure, but why the universe is like this.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, these ideas lead to the incredibly intriguing thought that maybe consciousness itself influences or even plays an active role in shaping the physical world.
Consciousness shaping reality.
Some theories, discussed in our sources, propose that our collective focus or shared attention on things like the Mandela Effect or other paranormal events could actually open gateways in some sense, or create imprints that allow these experiences to manifest more strongly for us.
That's a powerful thought, almost unsettling.
It is. The idea that our collective attention and intention could potentially shape or even manifest reality, from alternate histories we remember to ongoing unexplained experiences.
It really challenges the idea that reality is just out there, completely objective and independent of us.
Completely.
So, okay, while the idea of CERN literally opening dimensional portals to, hell or wherever.
Yeah, probably a step too far for hard science.
Right, it might be a step too far.
Right.
But the sources we've explored reveal this far more fascinating intersection. Public perception, cutting-edge scientific theory, deep philosophical questions about reality itself. It all swirls around CERN.
It really does.
The Large Hadron Collider keeps smashing particles, pushing the boundaries of what we understand about the universe at its most fundamental level. That work continues, but the discussions around it, from quantum entanglement possibly happening in our own brains to the nature of collective memory, the role of consciousness, it all suggests that maybe the real portals aren't giant machines in Switzerland. Maybe they're closer than we think, perhaps even within us, shaped somehow by our own minds and our collective attention.
It truly leaves you with a lot to ponder, doesn't it? What if the biggest mystery isn't about where the portals are, but how our consciousness interacts with the quantum realm to shape the reality we experience every single day?
It really turns the whole question of reality on its head.
Definitely makes you think.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the cool, weird, and possible. If you found this discussion as mind-bending as we did, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next adventure into the unknown.